All right, hello, and welcome back to yet another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. And I am your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin. And joining me once again is my old pal, Pat Flynn. And we have a very special episode today because we are commemorating the splendiferous release of his new book, Strong On. And it has an even longer, cooler title, which I will let him tell you about. I don't want to ruin
You
his
just don't
ability to.
remember it. You just don't remember it.
You're very good. It's a
And
long
neither and,
title.
ne and neither do I.
Wait,
Every time I do an interview on the book, I just stop at strong on because I'm like, what the heck is that? 101 here, let me read it. 101 minimalist kettlebell workouts to blast fat, boost, build muscle, and boost flexibility. I always mix up the build and boost. So
yeah, exactly, because they're
there's they
interchangeable.
alliterate the blast, build, and boost. There we go. All right, something along
Blast,
that
build,
neighborhood.
boost. Oh yeah, that's great. I like the alliteration. But if you've got them all, then you got to put them in the right order because if people look at it wrong and they're like, "Well, I'm pretty sure he said it was this order," does he not even know that, folks? We don't know the subtitles for our books. They're
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah.
nothing matters, folks. This is nihilist hour here with Pat and Alex, and
Yeah, man. Yeah, just
perf-
go watch some RoboCop and
yeah,
get ready for
exactly.
the future. Yeah.
Yeah, the finest of 80s movies about killer robots, apart from Terminator, I have to say. That's a personal
Why
thing.
restrict it to that category, man? I'm still amazed that people even bother continuing to make movies as if RoboCop wasn't already produced. This,
Yeah, it's a little bit of a slap in the face to RoboCop if you think about it, because perfection was already achieved,
the
and
climax has been hit.
yeah, it's like somebody makes a painting, and then some other alleged artists decide they're going to show up with their own paintbrushes, and they're just going to add more brushstrokes. It's like,
It's like
you know,
imagine being the guy who went to compose whatever was composed after Mozart's Fifth came out.
well,
Like,
I'll
yeah,
go even one step further. It's like, Mozart's Requiem, for instance. He wrote his own Requiem. Well, he wrote like half of it, I think. And then the remainder of it, his friends kind of cobbled together based on some of the notes that he had. But it's
yeah,
said to be that, like, the beginning is amazing. And then afterward, it's like, okay, you kind of get the point. So that's a perfect example. Only in
right,
this
yep,
case, people didn't have their friend's best interests in mind, as Mozart's
no,
pals did. Instead, no, it was yeah, it's a real shame. And
yeah.
some would say the same about your book. They say, why would anybody put out another piece of fitness material now that's
All human endeavors have their ascent and they have their climax. We've identified a few here, maybe the Last Supper painting, something from Mozart, RoboCop in cinema, and now in nonfiction, we have Strung On by Pat Flynn.
the most nonfiction book you are ever going to read, folks? I know you
It
think
couldn't
you've
be
read a
more
lot.
nonfiction. It couldn't be any more nonfiction than the cover is orange, my friends.
Exactly. It's as clear as day, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that all other books are essentially now in the fiction category. Um,
They've been relegated to fantasy after
exactly.
my hard, cold truth and facts came onto the scene, right?
That's what
Yeah,
they
for
need.
sure.
Is Barnes and Noble needs to have a news section. All the other sections can continue to exist, and then there's got to be a fact and truth section, and yours is like
It's
the
just
only
my
book. And there's only one copy allowed at a time, so that people can feel the urgent need to
yeah.
pick up their own copy.
Dude, this is an
Yeah,
amazing episode. I imagine that we've already just sent a mob of customers to Amazon
yeah. If
trying to mass order this book at this point. I mean, I couldn't imagine
folks,
a better, less exaggerated pitch for my new product here. Yeah.
exactly. If anything, we're underselling it. And I would posit that if people have not already turned this episode off and raced out to buy it, they should check their pulse to be sure that they are not listening from the great beyond, because I think any red-blooded American for sure should be racing out to get it. But even people who have the dubious distinction of living in other countries, as I do, they
Currently, yes, indeed,
correct,
right? Yeah.
correct.
A lot of Canadians have purchased the book already. I know. So if you're in, part of America's hat, good. Take advantage. It's available there, and apparently it's available pretty much everywhere except for Spain. I've been hearing from people in Spain saying that you can order it kind of, but it has to go through like customs. I guess there's
Ah,
too much truth, too many facts, that the government has decided they're not going to let this book in
the
to Spain.
government is trying
So
to shut
hey,
it
now
down.
you could be not only like a possessor of absolute truth, but now you can be like a renegade in your own country if you order this book. So if you're in Spain, do what you need to do, to get a copy of this and, be part of the underground.
The gains in Spain will happen if you train according to Pat's principles. How about that?
That's good, man. Works for me.
Yeah. And Pat can tell you we didn't come up with this beforehand. That was just pure, me riffing. You might say it was really bad and dumb. I would say
A
you're wrong.
geyser of brilliance. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Exactly. Geyser of brilliance. I think that's what I'm going to have to start using from now on when I talk about these things. So, on a not really a more serious note, I think we're having too much fun to go to the serious route, but I do want to talk about this book because I remember you told me about it earlier this year, and we
Hmm.
were in some secret discussions. I don't know if you swore me to secrecy, if I did a blood
Hmm.
oath, or if it was like some sort of John Wick thing where there's
It
like the little marker
definitely, it
over
was
the.
definitely encrypted at the least.
Yes, and I wrote a blurb for it, and it was a mighty fine blurb, if I do say so myself. And I wasn't the only one. Dr. Jim Madden, one of your own
Yep.
pals, wrote a great blurb. The wise and mighty Dan John, one of the greatest
Hmm.
strength coaches of our
Hmm.
day, had very, very nice things to say about it. And the question now, I bet, is probably on the mind of any, again, pulse having listener is I need to know what's so fantastic about this book that that so many people would have so many rave reviews about it. And I'm going to
Yeah, that
give
people
it my
can't
review.
stop talking about. It's the rage of the internet. In fact, we hit it's funny, and I will actually tell people what the heck this book is about in a minute, but we've hit pretty much every category, including like number one on Amazon so far, that is not relevant to this book. So we were number one in aerobics,
I
we were number
saw
one
that.
in walking. Like I'm sure we're probably number one in architecture at this point. So I'll take it. I'll be happy. But it is at the end of the day, it's a weight training book, right? It's a
Yeah.
minimalist weight training book. Dan John, he always gives me like an amazing yet somehow critical review of my book. So my first book, my Paleo Workouts for Dummies book, he said it was a terrific book with a terrible title, and he
I
was right,
remember that.
for
Yeah.
sure, right? And in this book, he's like, this is the best book that should have been written 15 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Pat
Like
has
when
been sitting
kettle,
on.
yeah, when kettlebells first came onto the scene, and you kind of wanted a one-stop shop for them. That's really what this book is, right? So it is, but I'm glad I didn't write it 15 years ago because 15 years is a good amount of time to really, I think refine your approach and sharpen your principles. And, if you're paying attention over the course of 15 years, you probably learn a few things. So
Yeah.
this is definitely a much better book now, given that I wrote it now than it would have been 15 years ago. So it's essentially divided along the following lines. It is a kettlebell training book. And I make the argument for kettlebells. I call them the Swiss Army knife of functional fitness. If you want to be a fitness generalist and a minimalist, you want to be good to great, or at least fairly competent at lots of different things. You want to be lean, strong, muscular, mobile, flexible, great endurance, the ability to go to distance. And you want a compact, time efficient way of training, something that can check, pretty much all the boxes and get you all or most of the fitness results that you could want all or most of the time. The kettlebell is for you. So I make the case of why that is actually the case, why those are cold, hard truth and facts right there, undeniable, banned in certain governments and by certain governments. And then I teach you the kettlebell moves. So we go, from the ground up, step by step, the single and double kettlebell exercises, the big hitters, right? The swings, the cleans, the snatches, the double stuff, the double clean and press, front squat, windmills, get ups. It's all in there,
Hmm.
verbally taught, but also pictures. And the pictures are they're black and white, so you can color in this book. It can be an adult coloring book if you want that. You can do that. I know that's the way that people relax these days. And because I always go above and beyond, we even have little QR codes. Alex, you ever seen these things before?
Oh, I'm familiar.
These little things that you take a picture of with your rectangle, and it brings you to a YouTube video, so you can actually watch me teach you these exercises and demonstrate them. So if people want that additional element, that's in there. And then after that, I teach the basics, the principles, the foundational principles of strength and conditioning and fat loss. And we look at all the different goals and say, here's what the science says, which you cannot question. You
Not
cannot
allowed to.
question the science. It's so here's the unquestionable science of what you need to do if you want to lose fat on training and nutrition. You want to build muscle, you want to build strength. Those are different goals. So we talk about training variables, how to think about intensity and volume and density, and it's condensed. I'm not giving people a massive dissertation. I'm really just trying to give them like, here's what you need to know. Here's the references, so we can get onto a plan of attack here. And then what I do is I give different programs for these different goals. So if you
Hmm.
want a minimalist program for body recomposition and fat loss, we got that in there. Obviously, kettlebells are the primary training tool for all of these programs. Not the exclusive, because we do mix in some body weight and auxiliary exercises, but mostly kettlebells. Program for strength, program for muscle, program for endurance, program for mobility. So we've got lots of kind of choose your own fitness adventure paths here. And then at the end of the book, I just have a massive collection of workouts, 101 of these workouts that you can plug into the program. So like there's zero thinking at all, right? It just they're categorized accordingly, and the programs teach you how to select and plug in the workout. So everything is spelled out. You don't have to guess about what to do, what exercises, sets, reps, or any of that. But of course, even if you didn't want to just use any of the programs in the book, you could just have that huge, massive bundle of workouts, the vast majority of which are all new. So I probably could have just recycled so many of the workouts. I mean, I've got thousands of workouts I made throughout the years, but I didn't. I
Hmm.
wanted to start from scratch and just do the best job I could. So there's a few returning like fan favorites, of course, those had to be in there, like my Great Destroyer workout. But really, this is a new collection of workouts. So if you're just looking for workouts to use for whatever reason that are kettlebell based, that alone I think is going to be worth at least 75 times the price of admission,
I would
for
say
sure.
potentially 76 because every time you and I
One
hang
could
out,
make the argument.
one one certainly could. And the other thing is that I was going to say every time we hang out, like you and I hung out earlier this year, we did a couple videos together, as I recall, and
Don't
you've got a
forget to tell
way.
people how we treated you on your birthday.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't think I ever told anybody about that. For my birthday, we stayed because I was in Wisconsin for my birthday, and to celebrate it, I'm not kidding. We sat and watched the pilot of Murder She Wrote, which
I was really trying not to laugh when you
it's I don't know how I managed not to laugh because even
and
at the
probably
time,
went to bed around 9:30.
what you for sure did, because I know you have a tendency to like kind of nod off on the couch, and it's usually Christine's up still kind of working and half watching the TV, and I'm like engrossed. I'm like, wow, Murder She Wrote, it's actually really good. And then I was like, maybe this is what I should have been doing for my 30 something birthday. Um,
But
but
anyway,
we also watched at some point. I think we watched some what was it, Magnum PI, just some
hmm
great 80s, reruns. We didn't, I don't think we caught any Night Court, but we did get those two.
not yet.
Yeah.
But
There's always next time.
there's always next time. Yeah. But
Yes,
anyways, every time we hang out, you were saying,
yes. Every time we're hanging out, we always do some videos together, and you've got a great way of taking a very small number of kettlebells and making a very challenging workout. You're never hurting for coming up with new and exciting ways to take the foundational exercises and make them more effective, more challenging, and more time efficient. And I think that this book reflects that because, like you said, there's you got 101 with a couple of old favorites. You've otherwise got 101 brand new workouts that are not only fresh from your mind but also of your experience over. I want to say it's I think the last 7 years of the Strong On program because or close to it
yeah,
because I think if I remember correctly, you launched it maybe at the beginning of 2018.
yeah, that
And
sounds about right.
yeah, and that was essentially the start of like this whole movement, as it were.
Hmm
So it's very cool that it has come to this point where now there's a whole book around it. You've got, like you said, the philosophies that you've worked on, but also your own experience and the experience of those who have been in the Strong On program for this long that are now going to be able to reach even more people with a very orange book, maybe the most orange book I've seen, at least in a long time. Hard to say if it is as orange as your previous book is green, but it is
Mm.
at least equivalent, I would say.
Same publisher, so apparently they are cool with me and my obnoxious colors, so I'm happy about that.
You
And
choose
yeah,
the
thanks,
rating.
dude. I appreciate those words. Those were good words spoken in English, and I understood them. And I think they're all correct.
That's step
So,
one, exactly. All of
yeah.
those things are at a minimum the base level. Did you choose the design, or did they come up with it?
They came up with it, and then, I told them like generally what I wanted. I said like obnoxious, mildly annoying, big, blah blah blah. And then they sent me a few, like I guess different mock-ups, and I chose that one. And I originally I kind of like it. Like I guess like if you want a fitness book to be like really sell well, you should put like some like naked or mostly naked person on there.
Yeah.
And I guess I decided against that. I kind of just thought that just having the kettlebell straight on there with the text was pretty cool with the orange cover. So I guess we shall find out once the sales numbers come in if that was effective or not.
I think simplicity goes a long way for a lot of books. And, you know, it's also sort of indicative to the philosophy of minimalism, or as I like to call it, Flynnimalism, because,
Mm,
you know, I was talking about this in the email that I put out today, is that generally I don't like the idea of minimalism, but that's because most people's conception of it is crappy. But yours
yes.
doesn't overly focus on just certain exercises or just certain set and rep ranges or only even the kettlebell.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's also calisthenics and other auxiliary movements. And so the idea is learning how to make the most with what you've got, but
Yeah.
not pigeonholing yourself into something where eventually you get slightly off track. Maybe, you know, you get a tweak or you don't have your kettlebell. And so now what? You're just not going to
Yeah.
work out until things are on the
You're
right
just gonna
track again?
just gonna cry in the shower. Is that what you're gonna do?
Exactly.
Not good. Yeah, no, those were also good words spoken in English, and that's right. All right, here's some truth and facts. And this is a train. Can you hear that train going by? Yeah, there's a train that just runs right behind my house.
I don't hear it at
It's
all. I mean, I've heard it
okay.
in the
It's
past, having been out there to visit, but
yeah, it's pretty obnoxious. So it's pretty much gone now. All right. So the way I think about minimalism is this. It's not about doing very little. It's about doing the least. And that little distinction is absolutely key. So a lot of people, when they talk about minimalism, it's just like, just do very little. Do just two exercises for the
yeah,
rest of your life and just 5 reps a week, right? And
yeah,
it's like, dude, like you're gonna like way undercook the chicken breast there, dude. Like
yeah.
that's not like just doing very little is not good. Like if you need to get the chicken breast to temperature, like cook it for more than 20 seconds. You know what I mean? Or just living out of a backpack with a toothbrush and a stick of beef jerky. No, again, okay, that I don't know what that is, but that isn't how I think about minimalism. Minimalism is just that ideal intersection between efficiency, which is doing things right, and effectiveness, which is doing the right things.
Mhm.
And whether that's a little or a lot of actually effort and activity depends on what the goal is, of course. But the idea is it should be no more than the least amount you need to actually get to the goal in the most economical way possible. So again, if you only need to cook the chicken breast for 7 minutes, well, don't cook it for 8, right? Because then it's probably going to be you're going to have mom's chewy chicken. Nobody wants mom's chewy chicken. And fitness is a little bit different because for some goals, you have room to kind of overcook without ruining the proverbial chicken breast. But you can ruin the chicken breast, right? You can overtrain and you can get injured. But it's just like the marginal returns at some point are so insignificant, right?
Yeah,
That you'd be better off just reallocating that time to other activities. So the idea is let's find that true minimum effective dose. What is the least amount that I need to do to get the goal that I want, right? In terms of time, exercise selection, equipment, uh, just volume straight up. Like how many reps do I have to do throughout the week? Let's figure that out. Understand why that is. So minimalism is a good thought exercise to help you kind of actually understand exercise programming and why you're making the selections you are with respect to exercise selection and different variables, intensity, frequency, volume, density, all that. So it should like if you don't know what is effective and efficient, well, now is a good opportunity to learn. And there's a book full of truth and facts that will help you figure that out. And then once you do that, you realize, oh wow, for a lot of people, they often discover that a lot of what they were doing was wasteful. It was inefficient. They're sometimes doing just way more than they actually need, and also a lot of times they're doing more in some ways, but not enough in others. Like they're doing way more than they need in terms of the amount of time in the gym, but nowhere near as much as they need with respect to the actual intensity
hmm
of how they lift. And so it's a way to reorient yourself. It's a framework that you put on to just help you be savagely efficient in your pursuits. That's what minimalism is to me.
Yeah, and I think the important distinction here, more than anything, is that you actually have a good definition. I remember some years back on a Facebook group that was really big on training, and particularly minimalist training. I asked, "How do you define minimalism?" And there were, I think, a couple dozen responses, but none of them matched. So it's like people like the general idea of, let's say, do less, get more, but they have a hard enough time defining it where nobody can really agree on it. So what they end up doing is less, but it's debatable how long they actually get more. And so one of the things that, again, in a very tongue-in-cheek way, I always like to refer to your approach as Flynnimalism, because you know how I am with Flynn-related puns. And I think it is the only one that actually makes any sense because it not only is that intersection between effectiveness and efficiency, but in particular, it's aimed at the end user and not, let's say, like a fitness crowd. Whereas I think a lot
Yes.
of people who write fitness books and material are kind of more focusing on either impressing their colleagues or kind of trying to show themselves to be this, cut above what other people are doing. But the fact is, what
Hmm.
people want is something that's going to get them in, out, strong and fit in less time and is going to allow them to still have enough energy and resilience to be able to play with their kids, engage in other physical activities that they want, and just be ready for life at a moment's notice. And I think that
Yeah.
this book does a really good job of that.
Well, thank you. And I want to hear more of these very nice, kind words you have to say about my book, of course, in a minute. But I'm going to uh, agree with you again, since this is the Mutual Admiration Society.
Correct?
And I think that, fitness should be a part of your life. It should enhance your life, but it should not consume it. I mean, like, unless you just really feel like you need to be the next Michael Phelps or like hyper specialist, but that's not my audience, right? And it's important to know who your audience is. My audience is mostly everyday people who want to be good, good at things, and good at fitness insofar as that makes sense. And I think it does. Like there's certain, I think just general standards that are worth hitting, right? Reasonable, challenging, but doable and worthwhile standards. So they want to be good at fitness, but they want fitness to boost their life overall, not consume it. And have enough time to, go after other things that are of interest to them. Maybe learn languages like you do, Alex, or play a musical instrument, practice martial arts, of course, time with other people, family, friends, that sort of thing. So fitness it's a part of life, but it is just a part of life that hopefully is able to spill over and enhance the other parts rather than consume them, take away from them. So if those philosophies resonate with you, fitness used to enhance your life and your health, taking a minimalist approach, then I think you're going to dig a lot of what is said between these obnoxiously orange covers.
I also think that what people are going to like is putting to the test drive some of these brand new not
Mm.
exercises, but workouts rather. And again, you've got some fan favorites like the Great Destroyer, a couple of others that
Yep.
people are going to recognize. But I'm always amazed too because whenever we hang out, I know sometimes we'll go to a gym and we'll work out, or we'll go up and meet up with some of your friends. But the kettlebells that you have at home are relatively light. But if anybody has seen any of your physique pictures, it's mostly maintained with relatively light kettlebells and foundational bodyweight exercises, which I think is a testament to exactly the fitness philosophy and the methods that you use. Because a lot of people think, yeah, but just one or two kettlebells,
Yep.
is that really going to be enough? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yeah. And, like this is well demonstrated, by the science. Which, if I hear anybody question the science, like this is gonna, yeah, dude,
It's over.
don't do it, man. It's done. Um, but no, it's well understood that if you want to build muscle, you can do it with, relatively lighter weights as long as you're pushing the right intensity within a particular rep range, right? So like, yeah, you can go heavy for 6 reps, or you could do 15 reps, but as long as you're close to failure for 15 reps, you're gonna get the stimulus that you need. Like, but really, as long as you're just close to failure, that's the
Yeah.
key. But of course, you can get close to failure with lighter weights. Just you push the reps up. So once you understand these principles, which I cover in the book, and I do, discuss the unquestionable science, and I say like, hey, yeah, lifting heavy is great. I still lift heavy and if you want to get like power lift strong, yes, of course, right? You have to do the lower rep, really heavy stuff, but a lot of people don't care about competing on a platform, right? They
Yeah.
want to be generally strong, and they want to have, let's be honest, Alex, a lot of people care more about looking stronger than they actually are. Now, I think you should have both, right? I think you
Yeah.
should look good. I want you to look good, but I also want you to, be able to back it up and have some real strength as well. And that's where, I that's what I push for in the book. But that's right. I have lots of different routines and workouts and programming paths in here where you can go a long way down that road of strength and muscle without like beast kettlebells, and the beasts are the 48 kilogram. I
Yeah.
never use anything like that. It's such a ridiculous amount of weight for most exercise, just totally
Yeah.
unnecessary for most people, right? So that's right. No, you can go a long way. And I think Alex, one of our more popular videos together, it's on one of my YouTube channels, is what is it called? Big results with a small kettlebell or something like that. It's got like
Yeah.
50,000,
Yeah.
and people like that one. And a few people turn their noses up to it.
I love those
Snobby.
people.
Yeah. But little did they know what they were missing out on. And people who actually use that routine spoke very highly of it and found it to be surprisingly challenging. So yeah, don't what is it? Judge a kettlebell workout by the initial kilogram prescription, I guess we could say.
Exactly. Or at a minimum, by the thumbnail that is used to advertise it on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it resonates with people because, number one, people do want, I think one of the ultimate desires is people want more for less. I mean, people really want something for nothing, but you and I both know that unless you're willing to do some bad stuff like steal or lie, it's not really possible or feasible to get something for nothing. More for less can be done provided there's a method to the madness. And so the
Yep.
idea that you can take a 16 kilogram kettlebell, or like, Dan John has said, with this kettlebell in my living room, I can train for nationals. And he wasn't overselling it. That's really how he trained with it because
Hmm.
he had a method and he knew what he was doing and he was willing to put the work in. And similarly, you know, 12 kilogram, 16 kilogram, whatever it may be that people have access to, if they follow the workouts, do them with the technique that you teach them, and are consistent and diligent, meaning you don't do it for a couple days and then quit for 2 weeks and then try to come back to it, but you stick with it, focus on what you can do. 15 to 20 minutes is all you really need in many cases
Yep.
to really transcend your current physical condition. And this book does a great job at getting people to do that.
Yeah, and if I may immodestly say so, I think there's some genuinely creative approaches in here with the actual workout design. So one thing that people have found to be kind of interesting and exciting is the way that I use EMOM routines every minute on the minute,
Hmm.
somewhat creatively, because for people who haven't done these before, it's the idea of they're on the clock workouts, so they're
Yeah.
they're sort of automatically time efficient, right? So the idea is at the top of every minute you do a set of something and you stay on the clock, and however long it takes you to do your set, whatever you have left in the minute is your rest. Now, those are great for time efficiency, but they're somewhat limited because once you start doing kind of more intense stuff and the work to rest ratio starts to skew in an unfavorable direction, it's hard to keep up with it, right? But what I do is I show how you could use EMOMs for indeed more strength and muscle building stuff, not just conditioning stuff, by just doing staggered EMOMs that you do, one thing at the top of minute one and something else at the top of minute two.
Yeah.
And maybe that something else at the top of minute two is a much shorter, easier exercise. That way you kind of get the recovery back, that
Hmm.
once you're back to minute three, you're doing that more intense thing again. So I just like little things like that in the book that I think people will see like, oh, that's kind of a creative solution to a particular problem or way to use a particular technique in a way that hasn't been explored before. And some of these things again talk about like the 15 years, like you learn things over 15 years. Some of these things I just kind of like stumbled into by accident,
Sure.
or it came to me in a vision or whatever, ways these things just happen, into your brain, I guess, somehow, and you test them out for a while, like, oh wow, this actually is pretty cool. This works, and you test it out in the trenches, and it seems to pass the test, and then yeah, and then it gets printed. So that's just one idea. The point being, I think people will find some new and interesting, even though the moves are basic. We stick to the fundamental moves. The way that we do them, I think you'll find some creative but principled approaches to workout design in here.
Yeah, and one of the things that with the example that you just gave of like kind of a tougher, more intense movement on the minute, and then maybe a couple of little easier things for the next 2 minutes and going back to it, to me, it kind of resembles like pedaling, like in music, where you've got like a note that you keep coming back to.
Yeah, pedal
And
tone. Yeah.
and one thing that I think is also really good about what you do is that you have other passions like music and philosophy and things of that nature that you make it a point to integrate into the stuff that you do, and that's one of the reasons I think you get a much more creative and more easily identifiable approach, meaning you can see a workout and be like, that's a Pat Flynn workout because it doesn't resemble what other people are doing, even if it's still using similar strategies, all the same principles. There's something unique that you've added to it. And I don't think you see that a lot in the fitness world because a lot of people, it's like their job and hobby is fitness. And
Yeah.
they've kind of, the other hobbies they have might be stuff like video games or pure just,
Yep.
consumption as opposed to trying to build new skills. Do you think that that plays a role in or like a conscious or a subconscious role in how you come
Yeah.
up with the stuff?
Yeah, for a while, I think it was operating below the surface, but over the years, I made it more intentional, especially as I wrote my book on generalism. And the good thing about being a generalist, trying to get good to great or at least fairly competent at lots of different things, is you can make those sorts of connections. So you brought up the idea of a pedal tone or a pedal note. So for people who aren't musicians, the idea is you might have a particular melody playing. But you frequently return under that melody to a certain note, like an E note or something like that. So there's stability, recurring stability, usually on the low end. Usually it's a lower bass note, right?
Yeah.
Not always, with some sort of variation on top. And that's something I was explicit about, like, well, this is like a really neat idea. Could we use this in exercise somehow? And this is where I came up with a lot of workouts that people seem to like, of just these kind of, yeah, pedal tone exercises, usually within ladders. So you can have a series of exercises where you just sort of return to a particular exercise as if it's a note within a ladder sequence or something like that. So I should have had some examples ready, but let me think of one off the top of my head. Um, if you have one, Alex, feel free to interject here.
One
But well,
thing I
here's
was, go ahead,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
Well,
I just yeah, you go first, and then
what I was going
I'll
to
here.
say,
Let me see if I find one. Yeah. Mhm.
musically, if people want to hear something that has like a pedal tone to it, where there's a continuous return to kind of a lower note, toccata and fugue in D minor is a perfect example of that.
Right.
And it's a
Mhm.
classical piece of music that everyone's heard. And I'm sure that you've got plenty of these in the book
Well,
itself.
this is kind of like that. I just kind of like flipping through. This is it's not exactly that idea, but it's similar enough that it's worth sharing. Is that so you have a sequence of exercises where you want to ladder the exercises,
Yeah.
but you don't ladder them all at the same time. So say you go like one arm swing, clean and press, and single arm squat. What you can do is you can cycle through that chain, but ladder just one exercise at a time,
Hmm.
say up to five, and then you ladder. Then the second time through, you ladder the second exercise, and then the third one. So just in sequence, it would look something like this: you do one rep each of those three exercises. Second time through, you do 2 reps of just the first exercise, 1 rep of the other two. Then 3 reps of just the first exercise, 1 rep of the other. So the other ones are kind of functioning as a pedal tone, as in they stay at 1 rep, right? Just
Yep.
you're kind of hitting those at 1 rep. Then you get to 5 of that first exercise. Then, maybe you take a little extra rest. You start again, but then it's the second exercise that ladders up after
Yeah.
that. And now you're kind of pedal toning the other two exercises, right? And
Yeah.
then, you get to 5, and then you ladder that third exercise and you pedal tone the first two exercises. So there's an example of
Yeah.
where that sort of workout was clearly inspired by this idea in music. I think it works really well because it will allow you to ladder exercises kind of with respect to just themselves in a complex, and that's important because it's kind of hard to ladder all exercises with the same weight. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because you're just naturally going to be stronger at pressing than squatting.
Definitely.
So you just kind of ladder them independently and have the other exercises function as that pedal tone. So you still get a nice kind of overall metabolic conditioning effect and just more volume. So that's, I think, maybe a way people might find is a creative solution to kind of blend kind of the raw strength goodness you get from ladder training, but also get some of that metabolic resistance training that you get from complexes as well. Inspired by something that is just familiar to me in my way back in my high school music theory and symphony classes, right? These pedal tone ideas, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's another great example of getting more bang for your buck because you are building strength, like you pointed out. You are getting in a fair amount of volume, so you're getting a good amount of work done. There's going to be a potential for some fat loss after effects from there, but you're also getting a metabolic conditioning without having to go super crazy. Because most people think of metabolic conditioning as something where you end up on the floor, you can barely move, and then you're just
Kidneys
out
are
for the next.
failing.
Exactly. Yeah, you're. you're getting rhabdomyolysis or whatever the case may be.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
But the reality is you can do multiple things at the same time. And if you are programming it intelligently, as one of the examples that we just gave here, it's possible to do multiple things like that and not do them all in a mediocre fashion, but do them all in a way that is actually not just doing honor to the thing that you're trying to achieve, but do multiple things like that at the same time. And I think the results that people get from Strong On, as well as various challenges and programs, is a testament to it. Because all they have to do is go to your Facebook page, the Strong On. I don't know if it's still a secret, and if I'm not supposed to mention it, or if now the cat's out of the bag for enough years where I could just tell people about it. It used to be Pat Flynn's secret group.
It used to be called, yeah, no, we can invite cool people
Okay, cool.
to it,
Yeah.
which I'm sure all of your listeners are. So feel
They're
free.
yes, they're all exceptionally cool. Not as cool as you and I are, but they're still. I would
Nor
say I
will
would
they
invite
ever
them to
be,
party.
but yeah.
But there's always a
Not
start on the
everybody
line.
can be the literal platonic form of coolness, Alex.
Exactly. Correct. Exactly. But nevertheless, I think people are going to really dig this book, especially if they followed your work for many years. And if they haven't, of course, they're going to need to
Repent.
kind of hurry up and consume like 15 years of back content by binge watching all of your YouTube videos and checking out your various other podcast interviews and articles, and you've got your Journal of Absolute Truth on Substack and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
things like
humbly
that.
named, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I like how it's
yeah.
no, there's no attempt at humility with it. It's just like not even like the search for absolute truth, which presumes that
Nope.
like you have noble intentions. Like, no, I'm already there.
This is
I'm
it,
just
baby.
letting you people know. You
Yeah.
people.
You should be so honored to share in it, right? Yes, indeed. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. I think you got to keep that up when people write comments. You've got to just write. You got to keep the facade up. Just like writing in a way as though you're doing them a favor by even deigning to acknowledge their existence. But
Yeah, that's a good way to make friends, right? Yeah.
absolutely. So where can people get Strong On with the
Yeah,
very
thanks,
orange
man.
cover?
Well, I hope they do. I gen all sarc I mean, Alex just can't help but be sarcastic, of
Yeah.
course. But I think you guys will really dig this book. I mean, if you resonate with the idea of minimalism, generalism, efficiency, creative, fun, I think the workouts are fun, challenging. I think they're genuinely fun. I think there's a reason that we've had, a lot of these kind of, workouts that have become, cult classics over the years. They're unique. They're fun. So if you're looking to spice up your training, Amazon, right? It's everywhere. Barnes and Noble and probably Walmart. It has. I think it's going to have very good distribution. I haven't checked. It literally just came out yesterday, but I'm told that's the case. But let's be honest, everyone's just going to go to Amazon, so you might as well just go ahead and do that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show for honoring me with your very presence on the show because I know that as you're solving all of life's philosophical conundrums and changing the world for the better, the fact that you have the time for
Gotta remember the little people,
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And Lord only knows there are a lot of them out there, and I'm glad that I can be one of them.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. It's always a good time. I appreciate the conversation and hope people decide to add this obnoxiously orange book to their shelf. I mean, it will certainly bring eyes to your bookshelf, and who doesn't want that?
Exactly. I think that's the only thing most people want. So, folks, go check it out. There is a link. It's an Amazon link in the description. But again, if you happen to be swinging by Barnes and Noble, maybe you see it in a Walmart. Maybe you're walking past your friend's bookshelf as you go to a nice fancy dinner party and you decide that you're going to stuff it in your
Some
dinner
sticky
jacket.
fingers there. Yeah.
Exactly. And replace it like Indiana Jones does very hastily with a bag of sand. Uh, just hope his bookcase doesn't like sink into the floor in a boulder, starts rolling after you. Because if that happens, we don't really have any advice for you. But odds are you've done enough of Pat's workouts where you can outrun it. So you'll be all right.
You'll
But
be fine.
go to Amazon, go get it. I'll have the link for you in the description / the show notes. And similarly, if this is a complete side note, but if you haven't gotten my 9-minute challenge, similarly, go to 9minutechallenge.com. Get yourself some more weakness crushery and have a good old time. And Pat, thank you again for coming on the show.
Peace. Thank you.
And as always, folks, have fun and happy training.